Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, officially now to the next lesson of Japanese 101, which is lesson 20, actually. That's 20. So I might as well maybe call it Japanese 102. Who knows? Maybe this is a new start. Though it's not really like a crazy different topic. Today, as those of you who have read the title already see, pretty interesting topic. We're going to talk about imperative. Oh, calm down, guys. I just misspoke. There's going to be at least 20,000 other lessons coming up. Okay, we're gonna keep going. 20,000 weeks. That's like 400 years or something. Anyways, let's hop in. Bunpo. Danganronpa has been helping with Japanese words. Nice. Voila. As you can see here, right in front of you, today's topic is imperative and potential. And I hope that in the course of this lesson, it will become fairly clear why I chose to group these together. Akka-san, follow arigatou gozaimasu. Potential forms are so weird to pronounce for me. They can be a bit strange. So, hopefully, for those of you that are like, why would you group these together? The goal today is to show you why exactly I'm doing that and why I think it makes sense. Obviously, I shouldn't do stuff that I don't think makes sense, right? That would be weird of me to produce, to show you stuff that is like, that I don't think makes sense. So the reason that I'm grouping these together has to do with conjugations and how they line up. So the first thing we're going to look at is imperatives. Hello, Evermonder Charles. So imperatives are fairly easy. Imperative. Let's try not to make any typos today. I mean, that's a tall order, but I can maybe do it. What's an imperative? It's fairly easy. It's from Latin, right? I think imperare means to make a command or to rule or something like that. That's why the emperor is the ruler. So basically an imperative is nothing other than... no, I don't know any Turkish. The whole point of an imperative is to make a command. It's a very straightforward way of commanding or ordering someone to do something. So basically, you get imperative is a command form. So, command form. So like, you know, in English, you just go like do, or, you know, or go, or eat, whatever. Now, obviously the exclamation mark that 101 is game, right? No, 101 is for in college courses. 101 is supposed to be like the first course you take, so that's why it's called 101. It's an homage to that. Do, go, eat. The exclamation mark that I draw here is more like a bonus. It's not really part of the conjugation, but it works pretty well as a way of translating like what an imperative does, because really it is an exclamation in as much as it is a command. Like you say to someone, you say like, leave the house, right? There's no arguing there. I mean, you could argue about it, but on a grammatical level, there is no wiggle room there. It's a command, right? You're supposed to follow it, or at least that's what the speaker expects you to do, right? Sort of on that level. So that's pretty straightforward, right? Command form just says ordering people. Bunpo kihon, そうですね. You're ordering people around. Now, the cool thing about Japanese conjugation, as always, is that it's easy. And let me show you why. But first, some coffee. Cheers, everyone. So Japanese conjugation is, as always, going to prove to be fairly simple. So we're going to go through how to do it. And we're going to go through the verbs in the same order as we always do. Not only because that's consistent, but it's also the easiest way of doing it. And we're going to start with ichidan verbs. Ichidan verbs. Ichidan verbs, you may know these as ru verbs or iru-eru verbs. You may know these as class 2 verbs. It depends on which thing you're familiar with. Now, if you don't know what verbs are at all and how they work at all, I encourage you to go watch the other lessons of Japanese 101. You can find them here. I hope this command works. It didn't work. Let me see if it will work now. Okay. I hate it. This is like a 50-50 thing. There you go. You can find them here. So there's a video about verbs in there. So I'm just going to assume you at least know ichidan verbs or iru-eru or uru verbs, okay? These are verbs like taberu or ageru, or other verbs like okiru, these kinds of things. A video in Japanese politicians say really rude to this one person. Omae kikon shiro. Kikon, not rikon? Are you sure it's not rikon? Because kikon means you're previously married, and rikon means you're getting a divorce, right? Except he's saying something else there. Like rikon is what I'm thinking of, but kikon means that you were married. Maybe that's what you're thinking of, or maybe I'm just getting it wrong. To get married. Oh, kikon shiro. Oh, okay, that makes sense then, I guess. Ichidan verbs. To give you some examples, right? We have the usual suspects. Taberu, my favorite verb. Not for any particular reason. It's just nice. Taberu. It's an ichidan verb. Another one. You know. Ageru. Ageru is an ichidan verb. Not gonna do too many of them, just because it's a bit repetitive. Might just be kekkon shiro. Kekkon shiro. Okay. That would make more sense to me. Taberu, ageru, you have all these okiru. If you use a dictionary, right, which I encourage you to do, it's good to use a dictionary, of course, and you type any verb, any word, or specifically if it's a verb, into your dictionary, it should tell you what it is, right? It says here ichidan verb. So if you're not sure, consult your dictionary. Can't go wrong. Concerning dwindling population, something I'm married and you're unable to have children. Okay, interesting. That sounds rough. Okay, now let's look at how we're going to make these ichidan verbs into command forms. The formation of that is actually super simple, okay? We just take the stem. Now, this is just a reminder, but the stem for ichidan verbs, okay, is always just the verb without ru, okay? So basically, it's just, you have verb in here, basically, and then you just have it followed by ru, right? All ichidan verbs end in ru. Yes, that's a verb group. Hey Nini, how are you doing? Groupe de verbe. Yes, ichidan, nidan, ichidan, godan. So you just take the verb and then you just get rid of the ru. So to make a proper example of that with taberu, it just looks like this. Taberu. Now just get rid of ru and we end up with tabe. And then you do the same for all the other ones, right? Nidan, new verb group. No, nidan verbs are, they used to exist. In classical Japanese, you had nidan and yondan katsuyo. Just like, you know, 4 different stems and 2 different stems. Those are not new. Well, I guess they're the opposite of new. They're old. Tabe. Okay. Now, whenever we have the stem, right? Now we can talk about the formation. Let me make that not red, maybe. So let's look at how we actually form the imperative, okay? It's really simple. You just add ro, okay? That's it. You're done. I'll make that red to emphasize even more. Tabero, right? Plus ro. Make sure not to add ru accidentally. It is ro. So here we get tabero, tabero. Simple, right? Not hard at all. And you do this for every single verb that's an ichidan verb. You can just be like, okay, I just take away the ru and I add ro instead. That's it. Okay, very simple, very simple. Tabero. To make an example with ageru, it'd be like agero. Right? Not hard at all. Verbs that are transitive will stay transitive. And verbs that are intransitive will stay intransitive. So you can use them the same way. 簡単すぎる。そうですよね。いつもこういう感じで。So, this is how you make ichidan verbs into imperatives, which again are command forms. Imperatif for the French speakers among us. Let's look at some examples of how we could use this, right? So I'll probably type them, and it'll just make it easier for me. So let's look at examples. Examples. I'm gonna make some space here to type. Lorem ipsum dolor. Need to make this like that, and we should be good. So one example would be 野菜を食べろ。野菜を食べろ。Eat your vegetables. 野菜を食べろ。I'm gonna make some space here probably. Here. 野菜を食べろ. Let's do another example. I need like okay. 朝は oops 朝は起きろ。wait 起きる。起きた。起きろ。朝は起きろ。There you go. こんばんは、ゆう先生。よろしくお願いします。Hey, Arky. よろしくお願いします。よろしくお願いします。暑い。いや、めっちゃ暑いよ。なんか朝ビシビシ。I'm sweating so much. It's so hot. I can't. 朝は起きろ。So what do these mean, right? What do words mean? I'm gonna give you some hiragana here as well because I'm so nice. イブって優しいから。優しいから。ちゃんと、ルビを振ってくれるよ。振ってあげる。ごめん。Get up in the morning. Yeah. So you have, over here we have 野菜。野菜。vegetables を食べろ。Which means eat your damn vegetables. And this is 朝は起きろ。Wake up in the morning, will you? Okay. These are commands, right? Remember. So, like, eat your. Well, the your that's a bit of an open translation here, but it's just sort of a thing you would say in English, right? Eat your veggies. And over here is wake up in the morning. Wake up in the morning. Would it be particle wa after asa? Yes. Wait, what are we talking about? I chose asa wa okiro because it mostly acts as emphasis or contrast here. Because it's specifically the morning you're talking about. Like, yeah, you can, like, in the morning you have to wake up. Compared to other times, like, you can't wake up other times. You have to wake up in the morning, kind of like that. Ibu sensei, 朝は起きろだけじゃちょっと変な気がします。朝はちゃんと起きろ。That's probably true, yeah. Okay. ちょっと変えようかな。でも、スペースがない。ちょっと待って。Yeah, we can add some stuff. ちゃんと。I don't, yeah, it's like, doesn't change all that much. Do we have space? ギリギリじゃん、これで。ちょっと待って。あ、こうしたらいいんか。Okay, yeah, we can do that. Just change the root to ro. Yes, that's it. 基礎からの例文ですか? No, I'm just making them up as I go. So sometimes when I make, when I use example sentences, they may be like overly short. Because they are usually just there to illustrate a point. Like, I'm not trying to give you like sentences to imitate. I'm just trying to illustrate a point. なんかこう、例を挙げるときにはね、例文を挙げるときには、ただこう、概念を、なんていうか、例文を使って概念こう、表したいっていう気持ちで作ってるから、多分たまたまちょっと変に聞こえてくるかもしれません。朝に起きろ。いや、朝に起きろis also okay. Okay, let's do. Wait, no, I don't want this paragraph. 起きろ。It's incorrect, I'd say. Why is it incorrect? 野菜を食べろ。Eat your vegetables or 朝はちゃんと起きろ。Wake up properly in the morning. I know. Thanks for the follow. フォローありがとうございます。So that's basically that. So let's clear some space because we have a lot more verbs to go through. Okay. It's so hot. I'm sweating so much. It's killing me. I do not like summer. If we can cancel summer, I would be the first one to agree. Let's look at godan verbs, okay? So you get the gist of ichidan verbs. Just change ru to ro, basically. No! No? Yes! I'm sorry if I was too fast. Hey Kimomu, how are you doing? The next one we're going to look at are godan verbs. Godan verbs. Godan verbs are all the other ones, basically. So we looked at ichidan verbs. So I like summer. I hate summer. Summer is the worst. It's hot and I sweat all the time. Why can't we just do spring only? Spring is fine. It's like 23, 25 degrees. Totally fine. Summer is like 34 degrees. No one needs that. No one on this planet needs 34 degrees. If we did a survey right now for every person on Earth and was like, do you have a need for 34 degrees? They would always say no. So, you know, I say cancel it. Get with the times, ACO. That's the opposite of getting with the times, because AC is super inefficient and is destroying the environment, so it's the opposite of getting with the times. 日本ね、蒸し暑い。そうそう。蒸し暑くて、なんかたまらねえ。Godan verbs. Godan verbs are all the other ones, basically. Where you have stuff like 話す or stuff like, you know, 表す or stuff like, I can't think of 書く or everything else, basically. So, godan verbs. Some examples would be 話す to talk. 話す to talk. We could have 書く to write. 書く to write. Or maybe a last one, something that maybe ends in る. So to illustrate a point, some of ichidan verbs actually do end in る as well. It's like 知る. 知る. This is also a godan verb. Sorry, I said ichidan, but this is also a godan verbs. Godan verbs. Godan verb. Why did I say wake up only in the mornings, but asa too much? I'm not really sure. It's a typical native spirit voice teachers. Yeah, I would say, like, I agree with you, but I would say it's still grammatically correct. Yomu. Yeah, yomu is another one. The problem with, like, there's like a huge difference between is it grammatical and is it natural, right? Like often you'll have something that's like perfectly fine on a grammar level, but no one would ever say it, right? Yomu. But as long as we're talking about mostly grammar and trying to illustrate grammar points, I don't think it serves us well to obsess too much about it. Obviously, I try not to make too crazy example sentences, but yeah. Talking about the natural nature of sentences is sort of like a different topic at some point. As long as it's grammatical, that's fine for our purposes right now. Except I don't want sentences that are completely weird. Sort of like 80%. 初見です。こんばんは。あ、ももさん。よろしくお願いします。今はね、授業、日本語の文法の授業中。話す、書く、知る、読む、all of these, okay? Again, if you don't know if a verb is godan or ichidan, consult your dictionary. It says it right there. Or I hope it does. If it doesn't, use a different dictionary. How do we form the imperative of godan verbs? Let's take a look. Formation. I'm just going to shorten it now to formation. Basically, and here we're going to go back to the kana table. So this is where the kana table comes back in. The reason why godan verbs are called godan verbs is because they correspond to the 5 vowels of the kana table. A, I, U, E, and O. I can't draw. O, A, I, U, E, O. Okay? That's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? That's why they're called godan, because one of these rows of the kana table is actually called a dan. Okay? So it makes a lot of sense. Why are they called that though? Because each row of the kana table ちょっと待って。母さん。いや、レイドありがとう。皆さん、こんにちは。Hello everyone. I guess I can talk English, right? A lot of your viewers are English. まあ、とりあえず、両方で、ちょっとした自己紹介かも。Welcome. This is Game Grammar. I'm teaching a Japanese lesson right now. Okay, guys. Well, as you see, we got a pretty big raid right here, but this went on for a while, and I don't know how entertaining this is to watch in the VOD or whatever, and it's really doesn't have anything to do with, you know, the Japanese lesson at hand. So what I'll do is that I'll just skip this part. You know, it's just me talking a bunch, not really part of the lesson. So I will see you on the other side, and we'll just hop back in at the point when the lesson continues. ちょっとね、戻りましょう。その文法に。文法という話題に。Okay, let's actually get back. We were talking about go-down verbs and how to make imperatives with go-down verbs. 最高。Now, go-down verbs are called go-down verbs because they correspond to the 5 rows of the kana table, which I love. This is one of my favorite things about go-down verbs, how they can just correspond to the kana table like this. コツはあったのですか？コツっていうか、興味があるのなら覚えると思う。So, a, i, u, e, o. There's five vowels, actually. Now, why do I bring this up? It's because the 4th here actually corresponds to the imperative. So what we're going to do to form the proper stem to make the imperative form is we're going to do a vowel shift or a change of vowels into the 4th row. Bear with me. It's not that hard, okay? You'll see what I mean. Let's take hanasu as an example. So hanasu, and I will write it only in kana now, so that's a bit easier to see for all of you. If you don't know kana, by the way, learn kana. It's great. You should, if you're trying to learn Japanese, learning kana is the first thing you should do. Hanasu, hanasu, and then basically what we're gonna have to look at is this sound here. Su. Okay, so that's an S. This is an S consonant. So in the kana table, that would be sa, shi, su, sa, shi, tsu. No, sorry, sa, shi, su, se, so. Right? Sa, shi, su, se, so. That's the S column of the kana table. So we need to do a vowel shift from su to whatever corresponds to e. So that would be sa, no. Sa, shi, no, that's an e, etc., etc. Se. Right? Does that make sense? We go from su to se. Okay? So a shift from an u vowel with the consonant to the same consonant, S, with an e vowel. So basically we shift from here to here, u to e. It's pretty simple. And in practice that looks like this. Ha, na, se. And would you look at that? That is actually all we do. This is the imperative. Dun dun, you're done. This is imperative. Okay, so that's why making imperatives is super easy. Okay, all you need to remember is vowel shifts and like how, which one to go to. So basically, the e vowel corresponds to the so-called imperative form or imperative stem. The reason it's called an imperative stem, we'll learn in a bit, is because you can actually attach something to this to keep conjugating into other forms. For now, hanase is actually the imperative form and it means talk, speak, right? Hanase, it's an imperative, so it's a command. So if I tell someone, right, if I tell someone, like, hanase, I'm going to use the kanji again, hanase. What I'm saying is basically, like, talk. Talk, damn it. The imperative is pretty rough. Special Edgar, thanks for the follow. Arigato. Imperatives are pretty rough, okay? These are not things that you should just throw around in your daily conversations, especially in polite situations. These are basically avoided 100%. These are very rough conjugations. You'll see them in manga and anime all the time. Obviously, like shonen, all the time, because people yell at each other. Okay? It's sort of a thing. Hanase, talk, speak. So basically, this is like the strongest way of telling someone to do something that you can have in Japanese. Literal imperative. Okay? Shine. Yeah, shine is another one. We go from shi, nu, nani nu ne no, nani nu ne. Shi, ne, that's it, right? We go from u to e. Pretty simple change. Kaku would be kake, right? So if we wrote down kaku, it would become kake. Kanatse, I don't know what that means. You can soften it by using te form. You can, but I don't like to think about it like that, because the te form itself has no intrinsic imperative property. At least I don't like to say it, because the te form itself can only be a request because it can be combined with kudasai. Like a te form request has always sort of an implied kudasai in there. The te form itself does not carry an intrinsic request nuance. At least I would say it doesn't. You could argue it does, but theoretically, when you make requests with te, it's just that you don't say kudasai. It's like an implied kudasai. Because te itself has other usages as well, which is just conjunctive. But yeah, you can soften commands using te instead. But it's sort of like a thing. We did talk about te form and te kudasai in past lessons. So hanase, kake, shire is a bit weird. Like you can't really tell someone. Like shire would be a bit strange. It's kind of hard to tell someone to know something, right? Like you can be like, shire, like know it. That, I mean, it's a bit of a weird thing to say. Grammatically it works, but practically it's a bit strange. Yome, however, is just fine. Yome, read. Read, damn it. Yome. Okay, yome, read. みーさん、こんばんは。こんばんは。恥を知れ。あ、確か。あるじゃん。ごめん。Yeah, that's my fault. So Himajin brings up something really, really true. 恥を知れ is definitely used. 知れ. So that's kind of my fault. I wasn't thinking of that. But yeah, 恥を知れ means like know some shame. Like be aware of what you're doing. Like aren't you ashamed? 恥を知れ. So yeah, I stand corrected. 知れ is used in some phrases actually. Very much so. おはようございます。はい、おはようございます。Alright, dude, it's so hot. It's so hot. I'm sweating so much. My fan is doing a lot of work, but yeah, shinasai. Yeah, shinasai, like with nasaru, is another one that you can use. I think we'll talk about that in a different lesson though. It would sort of go above and beyond. Ah! Ai, gift arigato. Thanks for the gifts, Ai. You don't have to. Thank you, I appreciate it. I don't think it's offensive. Which one? Kana is... kake is offensive as... hanase? It depends on who you say it to. If you say an imperative to your boss, you might get a stern talking to. You shouldn't use imperatives in polite contexts. Just don't use them when you're not absolutely sure that you can actually command someone to say something or to do something, right? If it's not your position to tell someone a command, then you shouldn't. Right? Just like I wouldn't go to my teacher and say like, tell me, damn it, or something like that, right? It's sort of, you have to sort of understand the nuances there. All politeness and rudeness, especially in Japanese, is sort of relative. It depends on what the situation is, whether what you say is rude or not. So yeah, that's a different topic. I have made a lesson on politeness and formality though. So that's Godan verbs. Not too bad. Let's look at some exceptions. And as you know, the exceptions are kind of always the same. They're always... damare is an example. Yeah, damare is from damaru, so damare, shut up. Shut up! Damare. Damare, kuzu. The exceptions are the usual suspects. They are... exceptions. Usual suspects, kuru and suru, okay? Basically... or yeah, now I'm doing it the other way around. Kuru and suru, or suru and kuru. Kuru. So these are a little bit different. Suru just becomes shiro. So you can see it also ends in ro, shiro. So you'll be like, shukudai shiro yo. Do your... I don't want to swear too much. Do your damn homework, right? Shukudai shiro yo. Do your damn homework, will you? And kuru turns into koi. Koi. Kochi koi yo. Get over here. Get your ass over here. Koi. Right? So these two you're gonna have to remember. There's only two. So, you know. なんかこう英語に比べたらね、こう日本語で動詞について、まあ動詞の活用について話すときにはね、その例外っていうやつは普段来るとするしかないので、英語を勉強してる日本人は今多分こう、マジぞ。なんか2つしかないって。いやでも英語にはめちゃくちゃあるのにどうしてこれなんかフェアじゃないっすよねって感じになるでしょ。It's kind of like in English, being rude is what you say. In Japanese, it's how you say it. Yeah, kind of. Why does that thing exist when you just use te form? Because te form is by far not as strong. Like it just doesn't carry the same nuance at all. When I say 宿題して that's like, hey, could you do your homework? When I say 宿題しろ it means do your damn homework. Like if your parents tell you 宿題して you know like, oh, I should do my homework. If your parents tell you 宿題しろ you know you messed up. You know you don't get to play video games for a week. Kind of, okay? But do you understand what I mean? They both need to exist because they're both on a completely different level of like command, so to speak. no video games. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of like かかってこい。そうね。かかってこいや。敵はそいつじゃない。So that's kuru and suru. So, you know what that means? We now know how to conjugate every verb in Japanese into its imperative form. And we did that in like half an hour, so it's not too bad, right? Japanese is turning out to be pretty simple. Command versus request. I would say so. Te still sounds a lot like a request to me. Because te can be like a pretty nice sounding request. Like it doesn't, you can decline a te request. Non-san, konnichiwa. Konnichiwa. That's how I would say the difference works here. Negative imperative form. Yeah, good thing you bring it up so that I don't forget. So the negative imperative is super easy, okay? Negative imperative is the same, but you're saying don't do something. Shiro as bianco white in Italian. Because shiro is also white. Here. If you look at this, this is shiro, which is white, okay? I can't write. This is shiro, white. But shiro is also a conjugation. There's sometimes words that they look the same. Just like, you know, in English when I say like, sometimes you have homophones as well in English, right? Like two. These all sound the same. So yeah, same thing. Let's look at negative imperatives, okay? So, negative imperatives are super simple. You just add na, okay? Negative imperative, it's basically just add na. Just add na, and you're done, okay? Take the dictionary form of any verb, like 話す。ちょっとなんかこう汚いな。字汚い。やべえ。話す and just add na. No big deal, is it? 話すな。Don't talk. Don't speak to me. な。今日はまた、そうね。Wait, how do you read that? 大なんとか。あ、ビットありがとう。Thanks for the 3 bits. Jonot. Am I reading that right? Jonot? I hope so. Wait, what is this? I have it, by the way, I have a translation bot in chat, if you haven't seen it. 大盛況。そうそうそう。大盛況。Yeah, today we're busy. 話せな mean anything? Not really. It's like well, it could if you're saying 話せ as the imperative and then na as sort of a sentence ending particle, right? Like it could mean something. It sounds a bit weird. I'm trying to think if you'd ever say that because 話せ, like na is usually a sentence ending particle used to indicate some uncertainty. Or you're saying, So combining that with an imperative is a bit weird. What's the difference between na and naide? It's the same as between using te as a request and imperative as an imperative. It's just hanasuna is way more rough. It's the sort of, this is like, these imperatives, I would say, you're most likely to hear in like shonen anime. Like you're not usually, when like guys that are the same age talk to each other, you may hear this. But outside of that, it's not very common. Outside of that, it's mostly people trying to be a little bit more polite. Teo hanasu na. Yeah, don't let go of my hand. Kind of depends on the situation, you may hear this, but the whole point is that this is like the strongest possible way of making a command in Japanese, is using either imperative or is using negative imperative, hanasuna. Hanashina as a prompt to speak. Yeah, so hanashina is actually... that's actually from hanashina actually is the short version of nasai. Hanashinasai gets shortened to just hanashina. So that's where you get that one from. If you add a word beforehand, teo dasuna. Yeah, teo dasuna. Don't interfere. Stuff like that. Thank you guys for the follow. Astral Genius and True Spartan. Welcome. Follow arigatou gozaimasu. So that's what I would say is the difference here is just the level of like strongness, the level of emphasis on the command is not nearly as strong with naide. Hanasanaide? Please don't talk. Could you not talk? Hanasuna. Shut up, don't talk. Kind of like that. So those are the imperatives. And now, let's talk about potentials. Now, potential form is cool. Potential form is for the first time maybe something that as like an English speaker or a speaker of like a European language, you would be a little bit amazed of how it works, right? ごめんなさい. Potential form Apex! Thank you so much for the sub. 4 months. Welcome back. Sub ありがとうございます. Welcome back. I appreciate that. So let's talk about potential forms. I'll shorten this because it already says it up here. So we're going to shorten it to pot. Potential forms. Basically, I don't think I need to make like a bullet point list here. It just indicates ability, or what did you say? Ability or possibility, maybe. Ability or yeah. Possibility of an action. Sounds weird. Bear with me. The potential form is basically can, cannot, okay? Can, can't. That's what the potential form is. It's one conjugation. It's custom-made from Kabuki. It's like a very generic sound. Actually, I'm pretty sure Jake and Bake uses the same exact sub notification, which I didn't know. I only found this out later. So you can't say I stole it because I only found out way later. I was watching Jake and Bake stream and I was like, well, damn, that's literally what I use as well. I did not know that. It's not on purpose, okay? I just thought the sound was funny. So yeah, there you go. Kabuki, so. It's a typical Kabuki one. Rain Reality, thanks for the follow. Arigatou gozaimasu. Basically, the potential form is a way of phrasing the ability of doing something, can do or cannot do, but in just one conjugation. Are you Jake and Bake? I may be. You never know. It's hard to say, is it? With all the deepfake stuff these days. So, that sounds pretty useful, right? If you want to say like, oh, I can swim, right? We can now do it with this form. That sounds pretty cool, actually. So let's learn how to do that. Now, lucky for us, we have already laid the foundation. And we just need to, once again, look at ichidan verbs, godan verbs, and exceptions. And then we're done. Donzo, konbanwa. Konbanwa. これは置いといた方が. So, I'm gonna leave this here. For ichidan verbs. Ichidan. Once again, the same old story. Form the stem. Stem is basically you take the verb and you remove ru. Okay? So you have ichidan verbs such as taberu. I repeat this often, but this is like such a thing. You need to like ingrain this into your mind. These basic stem forms, because if you can, then you're a literal grammar god. Taberu just gets removed. Tabe, okay? Tabe is the stem. And once we have the stem, is go to ichidan verb. It's my go to ichidan verb. A lot of textbooks, I think, use it as well. It's sort of like, because when I was learning Japanese for the first time, taberu was used all the time, so I'm like used to using it all the time. It's just a fun little verb. It's very easy to show, you know. It's something that everyone can understand. To eat is an action that everyone understands. I was gonna say, isn't it regular conjugation, but that's more didn't or didn't. Yeah, that would be do or did not, right? Do or don't. So we have the stem form, tabe. And all we need to do is the conjugation, the formation of this is as follows. It's just stem plus, for ichidan verbs, right? Stem plus rareru. And this is where it gets a little bit, you know, a little bit long. It's a little bit of a tongue twister almost. Stem plus ra, de, ru. That's long, but it's true. Rareru, tabe, rareru. Okay, example. Tabe, rareru. Rareru. Now, luckily, Japanese people have invented something that helps us with this. And they call it ranuki. Okay? Not tanuki. Tanuki is an animal. Ranuki is something entirely different. Ranuki. It's actually in the dictionary. Ranuki. Ra removed. The practice of dropping the ra in potential forms like taberareru. Okay? There you go. Not tanuki, yes. And that's also like making nana. Ranuki kotoba ni chūi. So these can be a little bit tricky. But if you feel that when you learn English conjugation, you also use verb to eat to explain that, right? I guess, right? It's like, I feel like to eat is just such a relatable action. So, ranuki is the act of removing ra out of a conjugation like this. Specifically potential form. So what do we get? Well, we just kind of get this, right? 食べれる. It's a bit easier to say. 食べれる. It's just quicker, easier to say. Basically that. It doesn't change anything about the meaning, and this is sort of considered a little bit colloquial. You'll see it in online chats all the time. People will use this a lot when they talk. It's very very common in spoken language. 自分が捕食されるとき食べられる。だからややこしい。そうそう。Yeah. So Non brings up sort of the overlap between potential and passive, and I think we're going to talk about passive in the next lesson. Yeah, ranuki, without. Exactly. Nuku means to take it out, kind of, right? Like wasabi nuki means without wasabi. When you order sushi and you don't want wasabi, you say like, wasabi nuki de onegaishimasu. Please take out the wasabi. Same principle. Ranuki. So if you ever see like tabereru, it could be it could be potential form. It could be taberareru. Okay? How often would you see it? Yeah, I basically just talked about that. Okay, that's all for Ichidan verbs. We're done once again. Ichidan verbs are notoriously easy. Atreyu! Isn't that the one from the Neverending Story? Hello, thank you for following. Or maybe that's spelled differently, I'm not sure. So, let's look at Godan verbs. And then we're actually done already. Except for the exception verbs. So. No, actually, one more thing that I should mention. This, okay, once you've done this... Trey is a good band. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Once you've done this, it will just conjugate like a Godan verb. Sorry, wrong. It will conjugate like an Ichidan verb. So you can treat this whole thing like another Ichidan verb. And you know what that means? Is that every conjugation that you've learned so far that applies to Ichidan verbs applies to this thing. Which means that we can just take the ru and replace it with nai, and it will be the negative. And it will mean I cannot eat, okay? Now, that's the real power of conjugation right there, is that they sort of just fall back into each other, where you get taberareru, and then it's just like, it's just like another Ichidan verb. And the cool thing about it is that most conjugated verbs, when they can be conjugated further, they will behave like Ichidan verbs, which is the easiest class of verb to conjugate. So, you know, Japanese is sort of very kind to us when we try and conjugate stuff. Taberareru, taberare-nai. Right? Because Ichidan verbs, you remove ru, you can just add nai, it becomes the negative. What if you wanted to make it polite? Well, what have we learned about Ichidan verbs when we want to make them polite? Take away the ru, add mas. It's really as easy as that. Taberaremasu. I can't eat, now you're saying it politely. Past tense. Well, what have we learned? Past tense for Ichidan verbs, take away the ru, add ta. Oops, not na. Add ta. Taberareta. I was able to eat. Haru's Cage, thanks for the follow. Follow, arigatou gozaimasu. It's an imperative at the restaurant, yes. なんか、食事持ってこいや. Bring me some food. So, right, you can kind of see that, like, once you get into the groove of conjugating, Japanese seems to be almost accommodating in that way. And just do what you already know. Apply what you know. Isn't it great? I love it. This is what kind of gets me excited about conjugation. So, let's talk about Godan verbs. The cool thing about this is going to be that, what I said earlier, we have laid the foundation for this already. So, 例動された. How often do people use polite forms on Twitch? When they show up first, when you meet someone for the first time, it's very common to be polite, like must this, sort of that thing. I see that primarily, I would say, and I myself do that primarily when I go to a Japanese streamer's chat for the first time. I will use must this just to be like nice, except because I'm also in like the age range where most streamers that I would go to are like similar in age, like they're like maybe something between, they're like 5 years plus or minus me, so it's like very similar, so I don't feel like I have sort of the age advantage, so I just go there, must this, it's kind of better, it's kind of, you know, good default, and then you can kind of feel it out, you just have to see like, yahoo omaera. So, Godan verbs. This is going to be simple. How do we make potential of Godan verbs? Formation works as follows. And now hold on to your chairs, hats, shirts, feet, and fingernails, because everything is gonna explode once your mind gets blown now. You take the imperative that we just learned. I think I may be exaggerating. I don't know if everyone gets as excited about grammar as I do, but still. Imperative. And just add. Okay? Just add ru. Isn't this beautiful? If English conjugation was this easy, no one would even struggle. Okay? Look at it. It's beautiful. You take what we just learned a few minutes ago, and you just add ru, and you're done. I lost my fingernails, but the rest are safe. That's a pretty good, that's pretty good overall. I love this part. The Godan verbs are Ichidan verbs with this, right? Yeah, so that's the other cool thing, is that if you think about it, all Godan verbs in imperative end in e, right? So hanase ends in e, and if you add ru, it ends in eru. So even on that level, it's completely like an Ichidan verb. So to make an example, right? Hanaseru. Hanaseru looks like this. It is a Godan verb. Hanaseru. Okay, we use hanase, speak. This is the imperative. And then we add ru, hanaseru, aeru. Yeah, aeru, to be able to meet. Hanaseru. So you can see that if you didn't know, okay, if you didn't know this was a conjugated form, you might be fooled to say that this is just an Ichidan verb, and you wouldn't even be wrong, actually. This behaves just like an Ichidan verb, hanaseru, and you can just be like, okay, take away the ru, just add nai, hanasenai, hanasemasu, right? Hanasemasu. All these conjugations that you hopefully already need. What is kikoeru? Kikoeru is sort of an edge case, because sometimes conjugations of verbs, and because of the way Japanese works with like the passive and the causative and the potential, sometimes some of these become so common that they almost turn into their own word in the dictionary. So kikoeru, you know, like kikoeru is definitely considered a dictionary form verb, but also you could see how it could be like, basically it's like, yeah, like, it's kind of hard to say awaseru. Yeah, awaseru is basically like awasu and seru. Mieru too, or not. Kind of. They all fall into that category. But I would treat kikoeru as its own verb, just because that maybe makes it easier. Also, I'm pretty sure that if you use the exact rules that we discussed today, you wouldn't really end up with kikoeru. Like kiku would be kike, so it would be kikeru, right? But people use kikoeru instead. Kikeru. Yeah, kikeru. You could say kikeru. Be able to listen to, but at that point kikoeru might just be better. So I would treat kikoeru as its own thing, but I'm pretty sure that it has shared roots with this conjugation, just like awaseru has shared roots with the potential form of out. Okay, hanasemasu, and that's it, except for the exception verbs, which we're also about to look at in a bit. So yeah, grammar is that easy to explain why kanji is so hard. Yeah, they need to balance everything. Everything comes in a balance. Imperative plus uru. Wait, Uchi said something. Not using polite language with new people is just rude regardless of age. Recommend speaking polite language to a point with unless they're literally children. Yeah, it depends though. Like, I would definitely say there are still situations where you can be immediately casual and it not being weird. But it's sort of this, like, I would say like these, like, if you meet people at your university or at your school, you could probably just be straight up like casual right away. But it's, you have to already, like, there needs to be sort of an icebreaker socially. Like, there needs to be sort of a shared group already that you can just be like, okay, these people are already like in a shared group with me, I just don't know them yet, and then it's okay. But if that's not the case, then, you know, then probably not. Ernos, thanks for the follow. フォローありがとうございます。まあ、とりあえずね。And yeah, that's basically it for that. Match 合わせる。Meet. So, yeah. 合わせる。Different kanji. The last one we're gonna have to look at are the two exceptions. Suru and kuru, which is gonna be a little bit more interesting here. Exceptions. Once again, suru and kuru, basically only ones. Suru plus Kuru. Kuru. Sorry, I get ahead of myself. Suru and Kuru. What do these turn into? These are a little bit tricky, okay? Don't ask me why, but for some reason, Suru turns into dekiru, okay? And this is just something you have to remember. It's a bit strange. Don't really know what the background behind this is. You can probably read up on it if you Google it. Like, I'm sure there is a reason on like how this happened, but Suru just turns into dekiru, right? Dekiru means to be able to do something. And you may notice from koto ga dekiru, which we actually learned before, which also is used to express your ability to do something. And then kuru is actually going to turn into korareru, okay? And you can see how korareru is sort of like a mix between the ichidan conjugation with rareru and also the ko that we get from some of the negative conjugations of kuru, like konai or koi, right? So korareru, korareru. There you go. And lucky for you, these two once again behave like ichidan. So everything else works the same. Both dekiru and korareru work like ichidan verbs if you wanted to keep conjugating them. Suru kuru. Namasarenai de ne. So there you go. Kuru suru. Pretty simple. Kuru turns into korareru. Suru turns into dekiru. Is there much of a difference between koto ga dekiru and potential form? Not grammatically speaking. It's more of like a nuanced thing. This is something that I would have to like research because for me, I would do this mostly like feelings based. Rikai suru. Rikai goki. You misspelled dekiru, I'm pretty sure. Rikai dekiru. It says like goki nakatta, but it should be deki nakatta. So the difference between potential and koto ga dekiru is more of a nuance-based one. Like there's some times when one is more natural than the other. But I couldn't tell you like the exact way how they're different. I mostly just don't worry too much about it and then try and just feel it. But I will try and find some research about it and then maybe post it on the Discord server. Wedge, are you on the Discord, Wedge? I hope maybe you are, maybe you're not. I don't know. Maybe if I find stuff, I'll mention it. But this is something that I would have to like go out. Okay, good. I'd have to go out and actually research because it's like very subtle. Grammatically speaking, they say the same thing. So yeah, there you go. Whew, we did it, everyone. What an eventful grammar lesson that was, huh? We got rated by Kaho-san and we got rated by Kroya and we got rated by I. Not in that order, but who cares about time? We here on Game Grammar, we live in the 4th dimension. We do things in whatever order we please. So yeah, thank you all for your crazy support and thanks for joining the lesson.